Well, and that's awesome because that's really kind of a nice segue into our conversation today. Because it seems like
It
Martin
is.
and Maya really run a nice team, and they have a whole group of people in their world. So, really today we're on page 196, and we're looking at the organizational model.
Right.
For those of you who have been following along really from the beginning, the organizational model of the MREA is the last part of the earn a million stage. So, we've talked about the economic model, the lead gen model, and the budget model of an MREA. Now it's time to take it to the next step and talk about the organizational model.
Yes.
Um, and really today, I would say between pages 196 and 213, which we'll be covering, we're really talking about the structure of the organizational model, where to find talent, and then ultimately, once you find talent, how do we compensate them, or what are some of the conversations we can be having in that regard. So to define the organizational model on page 196, it's the organizational model of the millionaire real estate agent identifies a division of labor and the assignment of responsibility among your current and future staff. So we're really looking at three key components. We're looking at number one, administrative support. So marketing, transaction coordinator, listing manager. Number two is a buyer agent, so a lead buyer specialist, and buyer specialists as you grow. And then number three is sellers, so a lead listing specialist and listing specialists. As you grow, you'll need more of them. So Mary Beth, I guess I want to start really looking at page 197 and ultimately page 200, which is the structure. So if you want to talk a little bit real quick, really in terms of the order in which you're making these hires. So kind of as I just went through that, you're going to be starting by hiring administrative support, probably one or two admins before you then get to the buyer agents and then to the listing specialists. But do you want to talk a little bit about the structure on page 197?
Sure. So for future reference, for future pacing and understanding the visual aspect of growing,
Mm-hmm.
what you're speaking of
Yep.
is page 273. You want to earmark that.
Yep.
Definitely a major piece of this book. It's really a visual of this all kind of coming together.
Yep.
And so, Matt, to your question, I don't want to jump over to that section. I just want us to be able to reference that visual. If you're wondering when should you be hiring, who you should be hiring, that's pretty much the layout is you're hiring your first assistant, and then you're hiring a second assistant before you even think about bringing in agent partners into your business. Now, I've seen it, we talk about how many places I've been and businesses I've been in. I have seen it done many different ways. Mm-hmm. And so this is a model. This works for the majority. Mm-hmm. And if you have a business that is absolutely working and yours looks a little different, it doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just means that after surveying all of these top agents and their businesses, this is the best way we believe to grow. Now, to your point of the page 197, mm-hmm. the visual that's on 197 is the first three hires. And then the team that they build below that. Something that has changed over the years is when we take a look at the right side of that page, it's the lead buyer agent and then all these other buyer specialists. So something that Gary had introduced a few years ago, and it just made perfect sense, was introducing the concept of a showing agent. Someone who is not necessarily a buyer's agent where they're going to write a contract and negotiate maybe or see it through to closing. Mm-hmm. But they're going to be somebody who maybe is available just on the weekends. Maybe they do have another focus, another job. Or maybe in your business, this is the way that they earn the right to become a buyer's agent with you, is mm-hmm. start as a showing agent. And so a showing agent's compensation, and we're not going to get into the compensation of buyer seller, because that, if you are at that level, I will only have that with you one-on-one because everybody is different. So please reach out to us if you're trying to figure out what is the best model for me and how much should I be offering and what value should I be providing
Yep.
for people I'm bringing into my organization, that's definitely a Mary Beth and Matt conversation.
Yep.
So please reach out to us. However, if we're looking at model, Matt, wouldn't you agree that when the agent does about 20 to 30 transactions, wouldn't you agree that like naturally they're looking for that agent relief, like the agent help, right?
Yep, absolutely.
They're not structured enough to say, okay, here's my admin job description. I need somebody to do this so that I could just go out in the field.
Yep.
It's more of like, I know what I do. I know what my week looks like. If I could just have some, and I've been there, if I could just have some extra hands and I could have, you know what, Jeannie in the office is really great with people. And that would be wonderful if she could take out these 3 buyers for this weekend. And that's how people operate, where they have these transactions, agreements, one-offs with agents, okay? And that is out of need.
Yep.
That is the first sign. If you are doing that, that is the first sign that you need to be talking to Matt and I.
Correct. Because you need leverage.
Right, because your fear is you're losing business because you're not servicing all the leads. Yep. So the minute that you think about either letting a lead go or, you know what, let me just give it to Jeannie because she can handle it and I'll just take a 25% referral. Yep. The minute you get to that point is when you really, you should have seen it coming. And yet if you didn't, it's okay. It's just now you're ready to put an admin, not a buyer specialist, an admin into your business.
And I also just want to, I feel like when I hear the term admin, and I know it's written in here a couple places, I think of very menial tasks or somebody that's just an admin, right. Like nothing that spectacular. Yet, I just want to make a point that, one of the things that Gary mentions in the first few pages in this chapter is that your first hire and your first admin hire, if you hire properly and you hire talent, could be the person that's going to ultimately drive you to getting that 7th level business, which we'll get to once we get to receive $1 million. But if you make the right hire, you can really set yourself up to get to, as Gary says on page 201, once you're ready to step out of your business and let someone take over, your future CEO will come from the front or middle office personnel. So your frontline office is going to be your marketing and admin manager, lead listing specialist, lead buyer specialist. The back end is mostly going to be—
It's who people see, right? Who people see.
Right. The transaction coordinator, your listing managers, assistants, runners, showing assistants are going to be at the back end. So you want to make sure you're hiring really top tier talent in the front line, the front end of the office, because those are going to be essentially your options as you start to get out of, into the 7th level to really be able to step out. You need a strong, talented person there.
Well, we, in our model for many years, we called it the director of first impressions at the front of our office, because it is just that. The first impressions, and we shared that with Allison many times, is that she's honestly the face of the business for those people who drop by the office and drop off a contract or pick up a sign, or they just call in because they need something quickly, or an agent who's trying to get in touch with one of our agents, let's say, or they want to talk to me or you.
Yep.
What is their perception of our company? The perception of our company is the interaction that they have with Allison, our director of first impressions, our director of communications. So essentially hiring that person, if we didn't hire a talented person there, I'll tell you, there are 2 things would happen. People would just go around her and then come to us.
Yeah.
And so they don't do that. I love that they don't do that, because she is super efficient. Or they would just get disinterested and think that we don't have our eye on the business and we don't see that it's hurting the business, and they would leave. And that is what, this is a very mature conversation, because if you haven't done 20 transactions yet, 30 transactions yet, you're probably not ready to go ahead and start this organizational model with people. However, you could and you should start this organizational model with systems and tools and automatic responses, because if you are a single agent and you're floating at 5, 10, 15 transactions, it may just be because you get boggled down in the very systemized activities that could be done through an autoresponder, an app, you know, a campaign, something like that, to where you could be a little more efficient in actually face-to-face, belly-to-belly, nose-to-nose, toes-to-toes with your clients.
Yeah. Well, and
So,
Mary Beth, one thing I did want to highlight that you brought up, and I think it's important to talk further about this. We were talking about how your first hire is going to be administrative support.
sure.
Then your second hire, as we mentioned, is also most likely going to be another admin before you, maybe a marketing specialist or whatever, before you turn leverage over to the buyer specialist. And I just want to touch on that because I know Gene Rivers is really big on that. And I think, and Chris Papalardo, our Bold coach, also had stressed that as well. But I just want you to talk for a minute about that, just because I think some people who might be watching might say, well, wait, why would I be hiring 2 admins before I even get a buyer specialist or a buyer's agent?
Right. So what happens is you put an administrative, if you have one administrative assistant and you are a single agent, that administrative assistant, that executive administrative assistant,
Mm-hmm.
you know, has to be a couple different administrative assistants for you.
Yeah.
Okay. So like you kind of mentioned, if you are just one administrative, you have to handle the transaction management, which is process, which is client touching, which is dealing with the vendors, which is contract management. That's one kind of behavior, really.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the other aspect, which is the marketing.
Yeah.
So, hey, I meet a buyer and this has to happen. Put them on this plan. I need a buyer consultation drawn up for them. Schedule this.
Yeah.
There is I'm going on a listing appointment. I got a listing, take the pictures, put it here, do this with that, send it out here.
Yep.
So there's that marketing aspect, which then you have somebody who's maybe a little more creative, a little better with their words. And then you also have that other part of it where they're there to help you with the lead generation aspect of it.
Well, yeah. Well, I was just going to say, you got two, just like you said, 2 different types of people. You got the one side, which is more we were talking yesterday about the budget model, more the financial systems, because we know as agents, we don't like doing the budget. So we need somebody to do that.
And agents don't want to do that. So as you're growing this team, as you're growing this organization, you need to make sure that at the core of your business, you're providing solutions for things that agents don't necessarily do well, so that they can go do what they do well.
Well, exactly. And you have to figure out what people's strengths are. And you just said it, is that people, the different roles have different behavioral styles that are going to excel in that role. The marketing and admin manager who's doing the very systems oriented stuff like lead generation, making sure there's a system in place, because then when you bring on buyer's agents, how are those leads being distributed? Who's tracking, conversion rates and appointments set? You have somebody who's really doing more the business growth aspect, whereas you have the transaction coordinator who's really doing more the contract to close, and maybe they're working with vendors, maybe they're doing client communication, maybe, as we talked, are they licensed, are they unlicensed? But they're 2 very different skill sets.
And so you would hope that with that, you're spending money, you're spending time, and my goal, if I were in that stage of building a real estate sales business, would be that I want you to be a fly on the wall with me, and eventually, first hire, you're going to be telling me what I need to be doing. You're going to be telling me that we need to get a buyer's agent because we cannot handle the leads. You're going to tell me that you need help, and here's the job that you want to keep, and here's what you would like to hire too. People are afraid to get into business with talent like that, because and it shouldn't be, and yet that's a leadership thing, and that's an internal thing, because you got to get your ego out of the way. If somebody could help me grow bigger and they show up even better than I was in that role, take the job, girl, take the wheel, so that we can move on to the next opportunity. That's part of the E to P, is that you can break through that ceiling of natural achievement when you have super talent with you. Some people just need to really understand what that means when you get into business with talent. Even if they are your admin, doesn't mean they're, that you shouldn't respect them and bring them up with you and see where you can help them grow. Because when you help people get what they want, they help you get what you want, right?
Absolutely.
Zig Ziglar.
Absolutely. And I think so. When we move just a little bit further in the chapter, and it looks like, Mary Beth, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think page 202 is actually the same as what's on page 273. We'll revisit that later once we get to the receive a million phase, probably if not next week, the week after. But I just want to touch on the 7 recruiting sources. So, we're talking a lot about admins and support, but now where do we find these people? So I don't want to dive into each and every one, but I just want to read them out loud and we can kind of touch on our experiences just overall. But they have the 7 recruiting sources. We have ads, and they have an example of an ad you can post. Allied resources, which we'll come back to because I think that's a really good one to plug into. Job websites, temporary employment agencies, permanent employment agencies, other agents in your marketplace, and real estate schools. The one thing I just want to highlight, and I think
knocked out right now.
Yeah, well, exactly. And one thing I do
employment agencies are going to be so overflowing with applicants. There's going to be amazing talent that's going to be available like you've never seen before, because companies are going out of business, and really talented people. Some really talented people took very mediocre jobs just to have security and stability. And so if you're going to be super purposeful about hiring, I would not settle right now, and I would make sure that we use all these sources that are out there.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of talented people out there, and I think right now, and we were even having that conversation this morning with our OP Bill, just about now is a good time. There's people, very talented people who are looking to be hired. The one thing I just can't stress enough, and the chapter doesn't go into this a ton, I think that actually comes again later in the net a million in the leverage phase, where they talk about capacity and cul-de-sac talent. So we'll definitely return to that. However, it's just important that you don't hire the first person that you talk to, and you don't just say, okay, well, because my friend recommended this person, or this, my mortgage person has somebody who just graduated college and would be a great fit. You really have to go through, we've talked about the KPA and career visioning process, but you have to do it.
Let's think about when we're selling homes to buyers.
Yeah.
No, even if we know hands down that this is the house for them.
Yeah.
In making that selection to make sure that it's the right home for them, they're going to go and see, and we want them to see 3 or 4 others that compare to this, that make this one shine, because then they know what the competition is out there. So whether you interview and you bring it down into a funnel and you have 3 candidates that you are dead sure you want the one, I will guarantee you, by going through the process with all 3, you'll find 2 things. You'll find some things that you didn't get from the other 2 candidates that were surfaced, that once you started digging, they now became a stronger candidate. And you might have that one that still shines, and you are so confident that you want to even make your offer better because you want to do golden handcuffs and have that person in your life forever. So I highly encourage you that, because when I was just talking to somebody yesterday and they had the perfect candidate, and I actually helped them a bit, have a call with them as an outside opinion of what a team leader's life looks like. And she said she went through the entire process and was dead sure she wanted to be in this world and was already inside their environment. And when they got to the last stage where they were talking to the regional, she realized that she had a 6-month-old and it really just wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
So, now, thank God, they have a net of a couple other candidates that they can go back to. And so you definitely don't want to just go, found the person, good to go.
Yeah,
you want to date a little bit. You want to date a little bit before you get engaged.
Well, and that's really where the career visioning and KPA process really comes in, because if you truly go through that from start to finish, you almost can't finish that it's going to take 2 to 3 weeks to really do that, because you're going to do the thought process, they'll go home, you'll come back, you'll do the group interview, go home, come back, you'll do the motivational interview. So it takes what I like about it is the person needs to show up and deliver 6 or 7 times. They're not just doing it once or twice and being like, ah, she can do it or he can do it.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say that as I've been through the process and you've been through the process, you get sure of your decision also as the candidate. You start to realize, I really want this,
Yep.
or I'm not really in love with this. And sometimes you need that to happen, because in a moment it sounds exciting and then it's life changes. I mean, look, right now we have the coronavirus. I'm sure people had many decisions that they were making back in March that are not necessarily the same decisions they're making today in May.
No, absolutely. It's definitely a different world right now than what we thought we were coming into in 2020. So really the last part of this chapter, and I don't want to go into.
You did want to mention though, on the recruiting sources, as far as allied resources.
Yeah.
If you are looking, our mortgage companies, title companies, attorney, paralegals, if you're looking for somebody at the core of your business that understands real estate, to that point is you want to make sure that you are asking our partners, people that you deal with, that you trust, that they have strong business and business decision making, and put it out there. I remember when I was in Brooklyn, there's a fabulous girl. Her name is Arlene, and she works for Freedom Mortgage. And she is like this girl Maya that we're going to be talking to today at 12. And I mean, I said, Arlene, are you available? I mean, I joked, but I wasn't really joking. And of course, with that, you want to always ask the relationship. I would go to my partner, Brian Cohen at Freedom, and ask him, would it be okay if I approached Arlene? And you know what his answer was? Hey, if there's an opportunity out there for her that's bigger and better for her, I'd love for her to explore that. So you definitely want to be asking those people if you are looking for talent in your world.
Yeah, well, and I was just to echo what you were saying, I don't remember where I heard this expression, but talent usually hangs around with talent. So if you really believe that the vendors and the allied resources and your circle are talent, then most likely if you ask them, hey, who do you know that's looking for XYZ in a job, talent is usually going to hang around with talent. So those are people you always want to talk to.
And going back to a different conversation we had, was there's 3 types of talent, and you're going to pay different levels for each of them. And you have to decide where you are in your training capability, in your experience, in your time that you have for the people that you're bringing into your world. And so you're either going to have somebody who is potential talent. They're coming in, and that's where you look at real estate schools. I don't know. They haven't sold a house. But I like their energy, and I see what they did before. And a zebra doesn't change its stripes. So I'm going to go with what he's done before is going to work in this world also. That is just, potential. Then you have emerging talent. Emerging talent is they've tasted it. They've done a couple sales out there. You're on the other end with a couple deals. Maybe they're in year 2 or 3. Okay. And then you have your proven talent, where you may be in a position that, hey, you want to go to Florida half the year. You need somebody who's seasoned and knows what they're doing, that you could do a little bit of coaching. It will rub off on them and they can go ahead and take over somebody. So it depends on what stage of life you're in, but you will pay differently for all 3 levels.
Well, and speaking of paying differently, really the last part of this chapter, and we're not going to go through each one, but there's 9 major compensation options. So you've got salary, commissions, pay expenses, bonuses, profit sharing, retirement plan, insurance benefits, vacation time and sick leave, and then equity opportunities. So to really echo what Mary Beth said in the beginning, if you're at a stage where you're ready to hire someone or you're hiring buyer's agents, reach out to us so we can walk through these steps with you. The one thing I do want to highlight about it on page 213, really the differences between what I just mentioned, is that the administration and accounting side of things, you're mostly going to pay based on salary. You'll pay their expenses, aggressive bonuses or profit sharing, vacation time and that type of stuff. Whereas the sales and marketing side, so like your buyer specialists, listing specialists, they're going to be commission based. You know, you'll have bonuses and profit sharing options as well, you know, based on how successful they do in the business. But that's going to be the two main variances between the two sides.
Yeah. And like we've talked about before, some people do pay a listing specialist
Yep.
a salary just to go out there and take listings.
Yep.
One thing I do want to say is if you absolutely have talent, you want to make sure that you are doing a motivation check and you're understanding what a future self looks like for that person so that you can really tap into what is unique to them as far as what will get them to stay in your world and build with you. And as far as a salary, if you are in a position where you say, well, I really can't pay right now, I'd rather do a percentage off the transactions, you are not ready to hire someone. Okay, so please do not do that. If you need some help and you want to do like per transaction, I get that. That's not a bad idea. A transaction coordinator, and you pay them a couple $100s per transaction. I'm totally all for that. But bringing somebody into your world to give them a percentage of your commission to handle your paperwork is not okay by me.
Yeah.
Okay,
no,
so
I agree with that.
I promise you, if you store that money and you get your 3 to 6 months of pay for this person that you would be hiring in an account and you hire to it, I promise you, you will hold that money accountable so that that admin helps you create money to actually replace what you're paying for. You need to feel that pain. If you don't, you will put the wrong hire in and you will cut anybody in 10% of your transaction to manage your paperwork. And that is hiring out of pain and not really thinking it through. So don't do that.
No, and I think that's a good place to end our call today. So we really just went through the earn a million phase, like I said, through the 4 different models, the foundational models. Tomorrow we will be doing the MREI call. So that'll be with myself, Kurt, Megan, and Dana. And then next week, so Monday is Memorial Day. But then Tuesday through Thursday, we'll really be focusing on the net a million phase. Which is pages 217 to 249 if you're following along. So there's 16 challenges that agents face in the net a million phase. And we're going to go through probably maybe 4 or 5 a day. And we'll get through that. And then we'll get into the receive a million phase after that. But that's really what's coming down the pike.
Just one thing on that is we have one of our businesses in our office is probably almost there, and I'd love to hear if we could maybe get Bill Boswell on the call next week for a few minutes just to hear what that journey's been like for him when we go over those 16. Might be good to hear from the horse's mouth what that journey was like, you know?
Yeah, I mean, maybe if Thursday would probably be the day we'd get through them, maybe he could come on Thursday so he could talk, you know, what he experienced with them. That would be great.
Yeah, okay. Let's get that together.
Well, then,
all right.
We'll see you back here at 12 on the Leading Through Crisis page with Mary Beth and Julie, that link. And we'll see you then at 12.
Bye, guys.